We're in that time of year when temperatures are dropping and it's snowing and raining and you still want to ride your bike, right? One of the key things you will need is a good pair of gloves, of which I have tried many. This is actually only half of them. Other half are over here. This video is going to be a guide on how to select a cycling glove that will work for you based on a lot of our experience riding in the rain, in the cold, in the snow. Welcome back, Pathless Peddlers, and if you're new to the channel, if you're into the non-competitive side of cycling, riding party pace, and living the supple life you have found your people, hit that subscribe button. Just because it's fall or winter doesn't mean you have to stop riding your bike. However, it does mean you have to be a little bit more selective with your layers, especially in your extremities, so your hands and your feet. I've probably tried at least a dozen gloves in the 20 some odd years I've been riding a bike. I've tried everything from very inexpensive gloves to very expensive gloves. And this is going to be kind of a summary of what I've learned. First off, there are two main truths about cycling gloves. And the first one is that below a certain temperature, you start to have to look at your gloves like other layers that you wear on your body. I think 40 degrees is that line where you should really start to look at a glove system, if you will. So some kind of inner liner glove and an outer shell. So know that there might not be one glove that will work in all conditions, but if you have a glove system, that's the best way to keep you riding when things get wet and cold. Second big truth about cycling gloves is that in all my years, I have never ridden in a pair of gloves that has stayed 100% waterproof in a long enough deluge. There are fabrics that do an excellent and kind of honorable job resisting the rain, but at a certain point, these gloves will saturate. Short of wearing dishwashing gloves, anything with seams, no matter how expensive or how technical the fabric is, it's just gonna wet out. Instead of thinking of gloves as waterproof, think of them as water resistant. Some will last a little bit longer, some a little bit less, and that's ultimately what you're paying for. If you truly want something waterproof, I'm not kidding, just get a pair of wool gloves and wear some dishwashing gloves on top of that. Choosing the right glove is highly personal. Some people get colder than others, but for us, we have kind of a basic matrix. And we divide our glove use into kind of the conditions. So we break them up into cool, cold, very cold, and between those three, whether it's wet or it's dry. So let's jump into it. For us, cool means temperatures from the 50s to about mid 40s. And if it's cool and dry, so no moisture, no rain, no snow, obviously, then something like a wool glove works great. This one specifically is by the brand Defeat. I love their wool. It tends to be a tighter knit, so definitely a little bit more wind resistant. It also has nice textured rubber grippy things so you don't slip off your handlebars. And they are also fairly thin, which makes them great for layering when things get really cold, which we'll dive into later. Another great alternative to a wool glove are just fleece gloves. These are relatively easy to find. You can find them at your local REI or outdoor store. They don't have to be very cycling specific. If you do plan on cycling when things drop below the mid 40s, you do want to consider gloves that are a little bit on the thinner side so they work within a layering system. So wool liner glove or fleece liner glove are great options for cool but dry. Once we move into cool and wet, that's when I start looking at more waterproof or water resistant gloves. A great option here, which still has that kind of coziness of a wool glove, are these Showers Pass waterproof gloves. Just looking at them, you would assume that they are regular wool gloves because they've got this great knit exterior. But on the inside, it does have a lining that keeps it fairly waterproof. In a Pacific Northwest mist or drizzle, these will keep your hands fairly dry. If you ride through an hour-long deluge, these will ultimately wet out, but they will put up a good fight. And although it is waterproof, it does still feel pretty cozy and wool-like on the inside. Another great feature is, as you can see, they are fairly thin, so again, they work into a glove layering system. Right, so the next class of glove is for cold weather, so 45 to just above freezing. Assuming that it's cold and dry, you want to start looking at gloves with some Thinsulate or some other insulating material. A great example are these gloves by the brand Sportful. These are their Flander. Not super bulky, lots of wind resistant material, as well as a touch of insulation. And those are the two key things you want to look for in gloves when it gets this cold, is insulation and wind resistance. Because it might be that these keep your hands warm when you're going up the hill, but the second you start descending and you're not generating body heat and the wind is buffeting you, that's when you need those two things. Another option is to get something like these Pearl Izumi WXB gloves. They're made with an out-dry material. I don't think these are actually made anymore, but you can find similar gloves like this. And they're basically a waterproof shell glove. These resist water fairly well in kind of normal rainy conditions, but if it's an absolute deluge, they will soak through. And they also provide a great wind layer for when things get cold. I like to get them a little bit on the bigger side so I can combine them with either a wool or fleece liner glove to again create more insulation. The idea being creating warm air pockets, so even if your hands get a little bit damp, there is still some insulating air around them. So transitioning from cold to very cold in that kind of middle area, other great gloves to look at are lobster gloves. So these bunch up your fingers, and the idea is that it helps you trap in more heat. These also have a lot more thinsulate material to them and also more windproofing at the fingers. So these are Laura's, she really likes them. They're by the brand Louis Garneau. This one says it has 40 grams of thinsulate material. Another great option I like that fall in the similar vein are the Borealis gloves by Planet Bike. A couple great things about these is that they're fairly affordable. Again, they've got a lobster mitt, so these kind of bunch your fingers up so they stay warm. And these actually sell with both this outer lobster mitt glove as well as an inner fleece glove. So you've got a glove that covers you for those cool but dry situations. But when you combine them together, you can get into that cold but very cold territory as long as it's dry. These will resist misting, but will wet out in an actual rainstorm. So the last category is very cold. And this is where, just a glove won't work. We're talking temps definitely below freezing, in the 10s, the teens, even the negative numbers. Once it starts getting that cold, no glove will do. At that point, you have to start looking at things called pogies. These are basically insulated wind shells that you attach to your handlebars. You can get them both for mountain bike bars as well as drop bars. And you combine those with another glove, usually a thinner glove. And the thinking behind the pogie and glove system is the pogie resists air really well, and your hands generate a big pocket of heat there, and you stay surprisingly warm. Here in Missoula, when we go fat biking, that's definitely what we use. And usually I can get away with just a thin pair of waterproof gloves or even fleece gloves combined with a pogie like the bar mitts and ride comfortably in temps in the teens to the 20s. For truly epically cold temperatures, they make expedition style pogies, which is definitely what you need. But the point being that after a certain point, a glove, no matter what glove it is, what it's made out of, just won't do, and you do have to combine it with some kind of larger outer shell. So I'm going to put links to all these gloves I mentioned in the video in the description below. What do you guys think? What is your glove layering system? What are your favorite gloves of choice? I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments. And if you enjoyed this content, found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe. We are so close to getting to 100,000 subscribers. It would mean a ton if you helped us in that journey. And as always, keep the supple side down.